we've been through obviously some very difficult weeks in the past, and speaking for myself, I can say that the decisions that I have made on the basis of what I believe is best for Canadians, to stand up for the truth and to stand up for the independence of the justice system. It's very unfortunate that it's come to this, but we have to make difficult choices in politics, and we aren't always in control of all of the things that will happen and happen to yourself when you're in politics, but you have to be able to hold your head high and look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say that the choices that you made were the best ones under the circumstances.
Do you Wilson-Raybould, on the same question? On how do I feel? Well, I tried to express, and Twitter being what it is doesn't have many characters. Similarly to Jane, I came here to be a member of Parliament. I still am a member of Parliament, a proud one of Vancouver-Granville, to represent Canadians, to bring forward issues that are really important to me. Issues, and I think all of us share, issues around climate change, issues around the criminal justice system, around Indigenous reconciliation, and most importantly around doing politics differently and ensuring that every person's voice counts. So I am, to put it lightly, disappointed. And I would say that if you stand up for what you believe is right and you hold strong to your principles, the truth and principles must always come first. And that's what I did, and that's what I'll continue to do.
The Prime Minister seemed to make the firing offence. I mean, in his speech, he referred explicitly to the lack of trust, and he explicitly referred, he called it unconscionable to record the clerk of the Privy Council. And that seemed to be among many of your colleagues as well, what they considered the straw that broke the camel's back. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think that, well, first of all, trust is a two-way street. And talking about unconscionable, I think it is, and I can talk about the tape in a minute, it's unconscionable to tread over the independence of the prosecutor. It is unconscionable not to uphold the rule of law. And I have always maintained that stance. I think it is very alarming that people are focusing on the actual recording of a tape as opposed to the contents of the tape. The contents of the tape, in my view, and in the view of many people that have reached out, speak for itself. I said and explained in my submission why I did that. But I'll say, I recorded that tape. There's nothing illegal about it, and I said in any other circumstance it would be inappropriate. I was protecting myself. I knew that something very dangerous and wrong was going to happen, and that my job was at risk. So,
can you address? Can you just before we go back to Ms. Philpott, can you just address? You just said in your remarks there that it was unconscionable for the Prime Minister to, I think you said, apply pressure to you and to not uphold the rule of law. But in your remarks at the committee, you said it was lawful what they did, their actions. You didn't make the point that it was unlawful or that you viewed it as a breach of anything in law. Could you tell us if you still believe that?
Well, I mean, my comments about the word unconscionable wasn't directed necessarily at the Prime Minister. It's a general statement around the necessity to uphold the rule of law and the independence of the prosecutor. It's fundamental in our democracy in order to do that, in order to make decisions around pieces of public policy, to have a foundation upon which those decisions are made, is how those decisions will be sustainable. In terms of the commentary and discussion that I had in committee around SNC, and in terms of my time as the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General, obviously, and I know there's disagreements around this, those things provided me the opportunity to speak at the committee. The Order in Council provided me the opportunity to speak at the committee and to the Ethics Committee.
Can I just answer your question as well? I just want to respond as well to, if you don't mind, to your question, Tonda, in terms of the bar being whether something broke a law or not. When The people of Markham Stouffville elected me to come to Canada. Of course they expected that we would uphold the rule of law, but they also expected that I would go beyond that I would be ethical, that I would uphold the very structures by which our democracy is built. And one of the pieces of those structures is that the justice system is independent of partisanship, it's independent of the executive and legislative branch of how our country is put together, and that I also wouldn't support a crossing of ethical boundaries. So to say that it's good enough if something hasn't broken a law is a very, very low bar to hold. And I would hope that all politicians would say that we would also not cross ethical boundaries.
A lot of Canadians are asking themselves, to you, Ms. Philpott, you went to bat for something which wasn't your file. Nobody else went to bat for it, and you paid the ultimate price just as your colleague Jody Wilson-Raybould had. So how do you explain going to bat for that when other people didn't? Why was it you took up that fight?
I don't see it as going to bat necessarily. What happened was that after this story became known in the public and it was clear that there had been attempts to persuade the former Attorney General to intervene in a criminal trial, and the communications of the government were to deny that that took place, I could not come out here in good conscience and deny it because I believed what the former Attorney General said. And there comes a point as a cabinet minister, you don't necessarily agree with every single decision that's made, but you have to, around that table, say, you know, we've discussed this, I'm on board, I can go out there and defend the government's decision. On this I could.
What about all of your colleagues? What about all of your colleagues? What about all of your colleagues? What about all of your colleagues who could, though? What about all of your colleagues who said they could live with it?
You'd have to ask them.
Speak about your decisions in the coming months. You said last night that you were reflecting on your next steps. Do either of you intend to try and come back to the Liberal caucus or to run again in the next campaign?
Well, we need to take, I'll speak for myself, need to take some time to reflect. This has, as Jane said, been an incredibly difficult time, not only for the two of us, but for our families. And my thoughts, as I said yesterday, go back to the constituents of Vancouver-Granville, and I need to be very considered in what happens next, what I do, and that consideration includes having detailed discussions, going door to door, whatever I need to do to understand the sentiments of the people of Vancouver-Granville, who have been incredibly supportive right across the riding.
You've been trying for... We probably need to go in very soon.
Yeah.
Would you like to see the support from the Daughters of the Vote today?
You know, in terms of the Daughters of the Vote, we had the great fortune of walking in and hearing them provide their comments to talk about important issues around mental health, around climate change, around Indigenous peoples. Extraordinary presentations by so many young leaders across the country, and everybody in that room applauded their statements. And for me, and I said this earlier today, to see the leadership of those young people and to understand there are such extraordinary people right across the country, and that if we all actually do work together in the best way that we can resemble the example that the Daughters of the Vote showed this morning.
Two more questions. Okay. One in English and then one in French, and then we have to go.
Sorry, the same question that Mrs. Wilson-Raybould answered about your political future. Your statement yesterday sounded like you might be done at the end of this time.
What happened yesterday was not something that I anticipated would happen, certainly in the manner that it happened, and so this is pretty early on in terms of deciding what the next steps will be. Like my colleague has said, I have a responsibility to the people of Markham Stouffville, to my family, to hear from them in terms of their views. I gave up a career in medicine, which I loved and could of course, consider going back to, but I felt that politics was a place where I could use what I had learned from my patients and my experience as a doctor to contribute in a significant way. It's been a huge privilege to be a member of Parliament. I would like to think that there may be steps that I could continue in a political role somehow, but I don't know what that will be. It's too early to say.
Ever for the Liberals.
It's too early. That's as far as I can say at the moment.